Hey everybody, let's talk about memory and death and what it is that people have this big concern of in life, which tends to coincide with pain and pleasure, and it's always driven by death. I don't remember who it was, as I'm sure many philosophers have broken it down this way. It was probably Jung, might have been Huxley, but there's been a few, and they always speak about this, what lies beyond, and the reason that people live in such a momentary climate. At least this is the way I will try to explain it to you. And it's the cognition of where did we come from and where are we going. I don't think a lot of people have given enough due diligence to their own life force and death force and the death urge, as it were. Because most people probably during their struggles have more of a, what is this thing that's life here? What's happening? Why is it so much of a struggle? Why the pain? Why the displeasure? Why not the Garden of Eden? Why not all of this? Where's all the beauty? What's all this nonsense? And it's tied in very heavily to the question of, well, we don't know. See, most people, we don't know what happened from 0 to 5 years old, do we? Yet we were instructed and trained and programmed from the time we came out of the womb till 5 years old. And then even after that, even when we didn't even know what was going on, up until, 10 years old, and all of a sudden we start to get a little more self-identification, and then we get into some place like coming out of high school where, wow, we're almost solidified as a human, as an adult, or whatever we'd like to call it. But even at that point, we're solidified as a set of frequencies and circumstances and identities and programs that were done unto us without our approval. And so much of life is trying to get rid of those, but because most people don't even know they need to get rid of those programs, they identify themselves with the programs so much that they don't even have the time, because they're still living in the program, to even consider, what is it that I was before I was 5 years old? What is it that I was before I was 10? What is it that I was before I was born? Is even more complicated to even, that struggle is so difficult that people would just go, nah, we're just going to go ahead and, there's somebody wrote a book about it. The Bible tells me so. The Quran tells me so. The Vedas tell me so. Name a holy book, name any book. Science tells me, who cares? And some people just go, it doesn't matter, who cares? It's all going to go black again. Nonetheless, the effort and energy that people put into exploring that space, because they think that the lights are on now, so let's get all of the experience we can in now. And some people go that route, and other people go, just let me avoid all the pain and suffering. They go that route. And then there's other people that try to navigate the waters and control the waters. And there's all sorts of ways that people go about this, but they never get to the primary mode, the primary source, the primary what was your sourcing? Where did you come from? And because it's too difficult of a question, especially considering, within the 24 hours in a day, people are going to be sleeping for 12, and nobody wants to talk about that, and we'll get into that later. So we're up for a few hours, the alarm clock goes off, and all of a sudden 8 hours at work, took a good deal of time to take that shower and cook that breakfast, and then drive to work, and then get home, and then deal with all of the relationship issues and pay the bills, and I get it, and these things are a common outpouring. It's what occurs. So then you have these only few hours to self, and you're just like, man, let me rest, or let me find some pleasure, and that pleasure is found oftentimes in drugs, alcohol, sex, television, or maybe it's not even a pleasure, but more of a release in a lot of these ways. I mean, they can be used for different reasons. Let's not go too far with that. But the source of people's discontent or confusion of how this life works and what it's about. I'm not here to suggest it's about learning. I'm not here to suggest it's about anything. You know, what do they make your own journey. I mean, maybe it is about learning. Maybe it is about pleasure. The highest good is always said to be pleasure. I mean, wouldn't you rather feel pleasure than pain? Surely. And we can find a lot of wisdom in these things. But more than that even is a sense of remembrance. Is a sense of where, well, if this experience all goes to nil, then what was its point? What was its purpose? So even in that we can start to kind of figure something out. We can kind of, you know, well, there must be a point to all this, right? Was it to learn something? Was it to unlearn things? Was it to remember something? Oh, I forgot to remember. It was like my mother always said, don't forget to, like, how do I have any control if I forget something? It's not under my control if I forget, huh? You know, you come through the womb, you're given all this, you go through that whole thing, like, where did you come from before you were there? And we go through this whole process of trying to consider. This is what the philosophers, the philosopher kings would do. Try to find what it was that they were looking for. It's like finding your keys, finding that thing that you lost. And oh, is it yourself? Oh, there you are. Okay, you remembered it. Okay, haha. Everybody just laugh and be like a child. That's great. Yeah, then there's something there. But then we look around and say, but there's so many people that have forgotten it. And then we go, oh, but then there's so many dark, evil overlords that are literally throwing shadows and demons and people with badges and stars and people that are dishonorable and causing pain and conflict upon us. And we look at these things, and it's always a source of, hey, people should slow down at least for a little while and give some consideration to these prospects of even how their mind works. Because how would your mind work if it wasn't programmed? I think that's a very important question for people to consider. If you weren't programmed with the English language, you wouldn't be running on the English language program. If you weren't programmed with the system of 1 through 10 as numbers, you wouldn't be using that system. And if you spoke a different language, you'd be under that programming system. And now, isn't it interesting that an English speaker cannot communicate very effectively with someone that speaks, say, Chinese? It doesn't work. So it's literally a different program that's been loaded. But we know that two children or two people that have a universal language, like sign language, we get into sign language. And so if we even get deeper into what the signs of nature are and sign language is, and the sound of a dog squealing versus a happy dog, we know the difference. There's quite a bit of difference there between communication. And as I was beginning this thought for people of, you should consider the programs that were installed. You didn't have any choice in the matter when you came out the womb. You were weak, you were incapacitated, you were literally blacked out, and then as you were, you had very, very, I don't know how to explain it. I can't really give you and divulge, some people call it evil, some people call it demonic, some people call it disenfranchised, some people call it power seekers, but to come through a womb and to be born in a hospital and fed poison in the food, and then we're given these programs of how to speak, and here's how to act through the, you have a couple parents, you have kids that come out, and as they say, the seed doesn't fall too far from the tree, and you have, they pick up these behaviors and these identifying qualities and factors that become an outpouring of the way that an individual thinks they need to be, or what they think they are. Oh, it's just me, they say. It's just, this is the way I am. And you know, we do develop a certain type of personality or a set of energies within us. But those things, that personality and that energy, is much separate from the programs that are run, because, and I think that comes out in specific ways of let me try it this way. Most everything that, even down to the way that we walk. If you watch someone walk behind their mother, and like you can watch people like, oh, look at, that's that person's goofy walk, or they walk upright, or they, and then you can see someone that has, you know, the chubby kid with the chubby parents has the same waddling walk where their feet fly open and they waddle, and and their body has caused that. So the behaviors of their parents, the programming, so all of these things go into it on so many different levels, on a physical, on a mental, emotional, patterning level, the way we respond to things. And so much of what people should be considering and is how to to pull apart, take the programs apart and say, what does this system look like at a baseline? What do you look like with nothing installed? A computer that has no programs running. What does it look like? What is it capable of? You sat there and used, people get into like watching Netflix every day, or here we're going to scroll through Instagram, or let's continue to, this is what your homepage, like all of these things are patterns that are run again and again. And what would the original computer do? It would have none of those situations on there, none of those pattern recognitions. It would have none of those programs running. So what do you look like as the unencumbered human? And what were you before you got to this human body? And it's so very, very vital for people's development that they get rid of things. It's so far from what scientists claim to want to do. It's so far from what religious people want to do. It's not building up a set of knowledges. It's getting rid of the knowledges that don't serve you. And so many of them, as Terence McKenna said, culture is not your friend. It's truly not. It's so many parts of it that if you've been culturized to believe in things that are not healthy, not balanced, not good for you, they're not on your side. If there is a side to be had, they're not in your center, they're not in your heart, they're not in your being, what your being, your soul is, and even what your spirit is. Let's say that, because I think it's something. I think the soul is something you develop or something that you unshackle, but the spirit is what you are. But most people don't even have a spirit, so there's no way they're getting back to their soul. You have to. The soul is the singular entity of everything that we're all encompassed in, and it's why we're all universally one. But so many people have been speaking about that. The love and light community, they just avoid the obvious of the whole totality of the state of the human experience, and just go, no, it's love and light over here. And that's not the whole thing. And so their spirit is not even close. Their spirit is not closer to their soul than people that are doing harmful things. In fact, maybe even farther removed, because they've avoided the bacteria in the culture. Clean everything up, make sure it's nice, and keep the dirty things away. I think the people that are in the muck are much closer to their soul, and considering that the soil is the soul, I think so. So, as we explore this a little further, and getting into what it is that people should consider and have go through their brain, is to instill a questioning, be a little does that really how that works? Is that, be a little bit more questioning of things, and then feel how it sits inside of you. See, people just shove things down their throat and they don't know how it feels. If people really felt the way they should feel because they've been numb to things, if people felt the way they should feel about ingesting certain violent movies or listening to shitty ass music or eating food that isn't, right for them, if they listened, if they could actually feel that they haven't been numb to because they were numb to through the programs, they wouldn't ingest the types of things they're ingesting. So when we defragment the entire computer system of our mind, of our experience, and get to the primal source of what we are as creatures, as creators, as humans, as gods, as whatever you'd like to call us, within this human body, it's not the more information you get, it's not read more books, it's not that path is littered with people that took wrong turns, and you're following them down wrong turns. And it's sourcing yourself to, well, let's get rid of the things that aren't. I'm not saying there aren't great things in books. I'm not saying to not listen to music. I'm not saying these things, because there's plenty to be provided with that within the experience. It's just asking yourself, if you were to cleanse your palate, what things would sound and taste right? If you cleansed your palate, you wouldn't like the shitty music you listen to. If you cleansed your palate, you wouldn't like the shitty McDonald's that you're eating. If you cleansed your palate, you wouldn't like the smell of that disgusting ass perfume that your girlfriend's wearing. These are truths. These are encoded in you as a being. You wouldn't like that smell. There's no one on the planet that likes the smell of a cigarette. I'm not saying tobacco. There's plenty of people that like tobacco because it's an organic product. But you know what I'm talking about? The smell of a burning chemical cigarette, burning plastic. Nobody likes that. And if anybody claims to, they're so far removed from the human experience that they've plasticized their entire consciousness. They're almost unhealable. So it's getting into this. What were you at the source of all of this? What does your being... What does a clean palate, a clean experience, a clean consciousness, a clean plate, what does it offer you? What does it look like? What is that original experience? If you were to somehow be able to program your life from the time that you were born, because a lot of people talk about this as, no, everything was preordained and blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, maybe. But then once you learn what magic is and then realize you can pick up a pen and script your own, what did you script that you would be able to script your own later? Like, maybe. But there are a lot of people that, I've seen people live their entire lives until they expired and didn't program anything into their experience. So I'm going to believe that their higher self programmed them to have a life of non-experience, of pain and suffering. I don't know, maybe, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about you and how to broaden your experience. And what would you do if you were to send yourself to, say, planet Earth, this plane here? I don't know how many other realms there are, but there's quite a bit. But if you were to send yourself here and you came through the womb, you wouldn't, I can't imagine anybody be like, yeah, send them through the thing with the needles. And you cut them off from the mother real quick. Yeah, cut the umbilical cord. Yeah, we know the healthy thing is to leave it there. But no, let's go ahead. Let's make it real. Let's make it a real problem. Oh, give them all the vaccines that are absolutely terrible and pointless and harmful. Yeah, let's get rid of their pineal gland too. Let's go ahead and encrust that. Yeah. Oh, do you want to program them into a bunch of... Oh yeah, let's do that. Would you program yourself into all that? Would you program yourself into a monetary-based system, fiat currency? You can't travel. There's fake borders everywhere. You live on this land, but there's somebody saying, "No, this is where this state ends, and here's where the other state begins." And here's what culture looks like, and we're gonna and they're gonna design it. Would you put yourself in that experience? I don't think anybody would, unless of course we just blocked ourselves off from our prime universal creative force for a reason. But I mean that's all subject to interpretation and however you want to play that game. But what is it playing this game? What would you do? How would you devise it? Because once you start to figure out how would you devise it, you certainly, then you can look at the program and say, there's no way that I would give people an English language that is literally backwards, and that words are completely out of order, and it's hard to communicate properly with it. Nouns before the verbs, causing people to believe in a materialist construct, thinking that sign up for this statist scientism cult, or the other way, you got to be religious. So if you're not part of either one of those, you're an outcast. You're completely lost, even though you're closer to the truth. So then you start to look at these programs. What would you install? Would you install at 5 years old, they pull you from your parents and throw you into a schooling system with 20 other kids that got pulled out of their home, and then you sit down and shut up in front of a person that you don't know and you don't care about? I can't remember half of my teachers' names growing up. They didn't care. They didn't give two shits about me, nor anyone else in that classroom. They'd earn $35,000 a year and make sure a job got done. 8 hours a day with people that have not your best interest. Would you sign up for that? Would you sign up to eat the food that they deliver us in those school systems? Do you know how filthy that is? Like, even now, how fucked up it is? When I went to school, like, really, that was awful. What was that stuff? And these are the governments that are feeding, and these people, and you trust them, whatever they are, to like, oh, here's your food pyramid. Oh, of course it's a pyramid. Throw some meat in there, throw some bread in there, throw some milk from cows in there, pasta, like high fructose. I mean, give me a fucking break. You wouldn't sign up for any of this. So when you start to really look at all of the systems in place and all of the programs that have been, placed upon our consciousness and our physicality, our morality, our ethics, our how people live, how people act towards each other. It's a strange place, is it not? So what is it that we can do to improve it or alter it, or because that's what it is. It has to be, and people, because they see it that way, because they don't know where they came from and they don't know where they're going, they have no remembrance of their past. We can get to deja vu in a second, but their only outlet is just leave me the fuck alone. Let me just live my life. They don't want to know anything new. They don't have time for it. They have a little bit of a belief like, man, everybody fucking has been bullshitting. Oh shit, I'm already 40 years old. What am I gonna do now different? This is the normal standard thing. What do they have more to learn? Like, oh man, I went through 18 years of schooling, and then they tell what? Imagine if I get a new job, I have to go to school again. Like, nobody wants that. They think like, man, they come into the end of their life, they're about to die, the lights are going off. So most people don't have a wherewithal to even start with, change the habits. Don't stop smoking the cigarettes. No, I'm going to die in a couple years. Stop eating the bacon. It's going to give you cholesterol problems and a heart attack. I'm on my way out anyways. I like bacon. I really enjoy it. It's one of my few enjoyments that I have, because the rest of my life just is shit. And that's the standard cry of the population. They're so immersed into a system and of programs that are not benefiting them, and that won't even allow them to have a look at where they came from or where they're going, or to even have deja vu experiences, to even dream, to even know what a dream is. You ask people about their dreams, they have bits and pieces of it. They don't know what they dreamt about, and they're certainly not lucid dreaming. You talk to people about lucid dreaming, they don't even know. You really start to talk about astral travel or getting out of body. Most people say, some people say, that's of the devil. Like, that's a great conversation to have with Baptists. Had to have that conversation the other day. Somebody called me a warlock. She wanted to save my soul from the devil. But this is the normal people. Like, even normal everyday people. What do they see? What can they? They're not controlling their dreams. They're not even. They don't even have control over what they order for lunch. They don't even have control over what time they get home from work. They don't even have, they don't even have control over their TV yet. They already got it programmed into them. 6 o'clock Wednesday night, they're watching that shit. 7:30, the next show is on. Like, this is standard practice. So they're not getting out of body. Like, what? How could they possibly see the benefit? And I get all of that going into it. And how is it to how to for people that may have made it this far listening through, like, I guess other than me telling you that, like, oh, you live forever, you're immortal, like, that's the truth. Like, that's the truth. But how does somebody know that? How do you experience infinity? How do you experience immortality? Well, you're alive now, so there you go. Yeah, but you're going to be, 72, you're a goner. 80, maybe you make it to 90. But even in that, like, even if that's what occurs for you, because you choose to take the path of what is that doorway towards decay and death, through that, you're still going to have a consciousness on the other side. Whatever the other side is, and I wouldn't even call it the other side, as much as just another form of this right here. But maybe you'll live in a body with, 3 legs and 12 toes on each foot. I don't know. Maybe your experience will be as a monster. Maybe it'll be as a bull. Who knows? In this whole grand scheme of things, of infinite creation and immortality, your consciousness just creates whatever it is that you would participate in, what you'd like, what it is that. But see, that's what we're trying to get to, is to get people to the point of exploration of, hey, if you can figure out a little more of what you are right now, that'll give you a little more power and control over the simple choices you make, over drinking that distilled water or drinking that high fructose corn syrup laden Pepsi. Okay, and then, hey, those couple simple choices, maybe all of a sudden it cleans your brain up a little bit, and all of a sudden you have a little more clarity in your dreams. And then your dreams actually give you deja vu, and that deja vu starts to identify you with, because that's a little death, and oh, wait, did I send this down from my higher self, or did I program this into my life at an earlier time? And then you can start to explore a little more when people really, get involved a little bit more with the dream world. And then, people always say this, I'm living the dream. Like, people don't really mean that most of the time. They're kind of being facetious, but some people literally are living a dream. And whatever that might be, so be it. People have different dreams. You have a million different dreams, but most people are blocked off from that. And I think it's because they don't have a good association of where they came from and where they go. And if you think you die when you're, say, 80, and you what were you before you were born? Okay, so you were dead, then you were alive, then you were dead. Well, it seems like there's no balance there. And everybody knows that pretty much everything is in homeostasis, then nature abhors imbalance, and that, it seems like you're going to be alive again. And so, coming from that standpoint, people will make different choices in their life. Maybe only minor ones, maybe only little different ones here. I don't think somebody's going to be like, wake up like, oh, I'm going to change the world and solve the homeless population problem, and I'm going to solve cancer and all. Maybe, I don't know. That's, part of your dream, whatever you want to experience. But I think it's a vital importance for people to really consider where they came from, what memories mean, what loss is, what it is to, like, re-immerse oneself in the dream world. Where do they come from? What is the birth, and what is the death? What is the legacy of the human race? I don't even call it a race. Like, what are we racing to? Nowhere, basically. We're always here infinitely now in the moment. We're in the present moment. It was a gift. It was given to us from ourselves in the prior timeline. That now we're just it doesn't really matter how you see it. It's just a matter of having a little more. A lot of people have a dilemma saying the consciousness. Well, yeah, there's a consciousness. It means to be thoughtful about being thoughtful. It's Alan Watts says it in funny ways, like, "Oh, when I'm sitting down, I'm really sitting down," or when you're making tea, you're really making that tea. You're not thinking about anything else. When you're tired, sleep. When you're hungry, eat. When if you're horny, have sex. Like that's the basics of the fundamental Zen nature of things. Does it always work that way? No. There's plenty of things that fold themselves into the game of being a magician or a sorcerer and planning and being a magician and creating a future, because you're doing it now for a little bit of what you'd call the future, so you can live in it presently. But I think it's very, very integral for people to have a little bit more of a talk with them, with their own being. And just to get back to where I started this was to get back and consider what all these programs are. Where did they get installed? And what would your mind sound like? What would your mind look like? How would you view the world if you didn't have all the programs running? If you didn't have, like, the sound of my voice is no longer words. It's just blah, 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 blah. It's a mumble to you. That's what it'd sound like. And the colors are just the colors. You wouldn't identify the curtains as curtains. You'd see them as whatever shapes are on the wall. And you would, the car going by would just be some unit of energy that was... These things would change, and you would experience something a little different. And then you'd wonder, you'd be curious about who installed these programs and for what. And do they have any benefit to you? Hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Stay well.